Hello everyone, this is Randy I, and today I have a video essay on the future of dating. It is currently year 2024, and I'm going to make some predictions as to what dating is going to look like in year 2034, 10 years in the future. There's been a lot of talk about dating and troubles in the dating world, the decline of dating. So it's a very interesting and timely topic. To give you a little bit of background about myself, I am a lawyer, an entrepreneur, I am a world traveler, and I am a philosopher. And I've been studying the world of dating and male-female dynamics for the last 15 years, and I want to share with you some of my predictions. Again, the perspective I'm sharing today is mainly the heterosexual perspective, and it's going to be mainly the masculine perspective, the male perspective, for obvious reasons, in that a lot of my own experience is from that particular angle. So some of my lived experience will probably make its way anecdotally into this video, and that is the angle from which I can analyze this topic in the most informed manner. So there are three topics I'm going to talk about today, and these topics form predictions as to what the dating world will look like in 2034. The first is the increased commodification of dating. The second is what I call the Great Schism, which is the arrival of sentient or near sentient artificial intelligence as a substitute for current dating. The current world I'm going to call, for the purposes of this video, the native world. And the virtual world in which this new form of dating will occur will be known as the virtual world for the purposes of this video. And then the third topic, I'm going to talk about the counter-revolution, which is the reaction of people in the native world to the increased, one, commodification, and two, the intrusion of artificial intelligence into dating, and what type of reaction there's going to be in response to that. I'm going to call that the counter-revolution, and we're going to explore the type of pushback we're going to see in about 10 years. Okay, so let's start with the first topic, which is the topic of the increased commodification of dating. So historically, dating always had, at least with male-female relationships, always had some level of financial perspective or financial element. Traditionally a male would pay for dinner, would in the process of courtship with a female that he wanted to date or that he liked, there would always be some element of financial gifting or generosity in the process of courtship, at least according to traditional relationships, as to what that would look like. Now, in our modern age, though, there is an increased explicit commodification of dating. Not just in the interactions between men and women, but also in the platforms on which dating is taking place. So there's going to be several sub-themes I want to address, and I predict that this is actually going to be exaggerated in 10 years, and in the future being 10 years from now, we're going to see an increased commodification. So one is the dating apps themselves, which is where I'm going to start. So if you may remember, in the beginning, dating apps were predominantly free, right? Tinder was free. Bumble, other dating apps were predominantly free. And with the increase of use of dating apps, these companies that own the apps, for example, Tinder is owned by Match Group, which is a large conglomerate, and they own Hinge and a lot of different platforms, and then Bumble is owned by a separate group. These apps realize, obviously, that if they charge subscription fees, then they could generate more revenue. And those users on the app, predominantly, and this is asymmetrical in that males are victims to this more than females, because statistically men match less frequently than women, at least a majority of men. So if you look at the graph of who matches with whom and who gets the most attention, the sort of bottom third of men in this sort of distribution get very, very little attention, right? And some of them no attention at all. The middle group get a little bit of attention. So this is the sort of the middle part of the normal distribution of the bell curve. And then you have this group of men, sort of the 10%, the 5% that get 10 times or 100 times more attention than the bottom 1/3. And all of these statistics are found through some of the disclosure made by these dating companies. So you can, it's now public record in terms of who matches with whom and who gets attention and who gets matches. But it's a very skewed distribution where there is a group of men at the very top of the distribution who get a disproportionate amount of attention and a disproportionate amount of female interest. So what ended up happening is that in order to get even some interest, the men in the middle and presumably at the bottom of this distribution were then forced to pay these subscription fees to companies like Tinder and Bumble in order to get greater number of matches, right? So these subscription fees will give you more matches, more opportunities, will give you certain privileges within the system. So that's how these companies predominantly make money. The subscriptions are predominantly paid for by men in order to match with women. And that's sort of the business model, right? To keep people hooked on these apps and to charge them. Now, the problem with this is that as dating has become more virtual, as we've migrated from a face-to-face, real-life dating world. Again, what I call the native world, right? This is sort of base-level reality, the native world. As we progress from the native world into more of a virtual world, and dating apps operate, in effect, in the virtual world. We'll talk about artificial intelligence later, but they operate in the virtual world in that you're not meeting people in real life. You're meeting some element of them through texting and images through their profiles. So you're not meeting them, at least not at first instance. As we move into this virtual world of dating, and as this becomes mainstream, especially post-pandemic, where a lot of people use dating apps as their only source of dating during the pandemic and post-pandemic, and where a lot of people, especially men, now no longer have the skill level to approach women in real life, in where they used to approach women back in the day, before the dating apps, where this type of where the apps themselves, the technology has become so normalized. What ends up happening is that we become dependent on this technology. So there are now groups of men who don't know how to date in the native world, right? They don't know how to approach women at bars or in cafes or at the local community gathering or however men used to meet women. That traditional way of meeting, whether it's through dancing or through shared hobbies or at the gym or through events or through social circles. There's now groups of men who now rely solely on these apps. And they can't meet women elsewhere. So now it becomes a situation where they're forced to pay, right? Or they're forced to pay just to access the dating pool because that's their only source of dating. So you can imagine by way of analogy, I suppose you need to get on a particular bridge or a road to get to work or to do your daily shopping. Suppose that's just what you need. It's a necessity. But suppose that all of these bridges or these roads are now tolled bridges and roads. So there's a toll that you must pay. They're not free anymore. You must pay a toll to get on this bridge or to go on this road, right? And that's what the dating market has become, in that there are now these sort of gatekeeping commodified entry points where just to enter the market itself, you have to pay. And with our increased use of platforms, and I predict there'll be many more platforms in 10 years and different types of platforms. They will predominantly be commercial products, right? There's going to be a design team and some software company behind these products, and their purpose is to make profit. So that's the first wave, and this is going to have really interesting and predictably probably negative implications for dating, as this type of commodification it becomes normalized, and there's sort of a disparity even between men who can afford to pay these exorbitant subscription fees versus men who can't, and where are they going to turn to, right? This group of men who, some of them become incels, involuntarily celibate, right? Some of them may remove themselves from, or have already removed themselves from the dating pool entirely. And there's going to be some really interesting implications, which we will explore in the course of this video. The second way that commodification is taking place is through these creation of these parasocial relationships. So a parasocial relationship is one between, for example, a celebrity and a person who admires that celebrity. They're not social relationships, and that it's not at equal level, and it's where one person knows the other person, but the other person doesn't really know the first party. Right, so there's sort of these asymmetrical relationships, like the relationship you may have with a celebrity, or the relationship of a fan to their celebrity idol is a parasocial relationship. And we see a lot of these parasocial relationships starting to develop in what really could be called dating, but not in the traditional sense, because we have many predominantly women creating profiles on platforms such as OnlyFans and platforms similar to these, where they're essentially minor celebrities, right? It seems like every female model's Instagram profile has become just a feeder for their OnlyFans page. So they've become sort of Instagram celebrities. They're not real celebrities, but they're minor celebrities, and these groups of people have discovered that a fantastic way to generate income is to show pictures of themselves, or to show themselves in compromising positions, or to take off their clothes. So they've developed this entire industry to seduce and to attract men, willingly, of course, to pay for pictures and for perhaps communication, perhaps texting, or video messaging. A lot of this, of course, is part of a scam, because the women who use these platforms, obviously, some of them may be texting you as the man, but often they are actually outsourcing the communication to what they call a DM team, a direct messaging team, right? So while you think you're talking to this lady from Las Vegas on OnlyFans, you may actually be talking to a man from India, and this is true. I've talked to OnlyFans models who actually outsource all of the texting and the communications to an overseas DM team, right? So you're not even getting what you think you're getting. So you have this increase in these parasocial relationships, which is compounded by what I call the democratization of pornography. So what I mean by the democratization of pornography is that traditionally you had groups of companies right? Studios that made videos and images, adult content that was then disseminated into the wider public. But now with these platforms like OnlyFans and these other similar platforms, anyone could essentially create pornography and disseminate it themselves, right? So that's what I mean by democratization, that it's actually, in a way, at least for the content creators, it's even the playing field. It's even the playing field to the extent that you don't need a big studio, you don't need a large camera equipment. Anyone could create this type of adult content. And using this adult content, they can then attract essentially clients and customers. The industry terminology is simps, for example, as one of the terms. It's not the only term, but that's one of the terms where they attract paying customers and paying clients virtually to pay, right? So these women are in a strange asymmetrical relationship with these men, but it's a parasocial relationship, right? The most of the relationship is in the man's head, right? He's paying for pictures, maybe for a customized video, for text messaging, for some type of emotional and you know and sexual gain or gratification, but the lady is not at the same level. They're not meeting in real life in most of these circumstances, and they don't actually know each other beyond this internet relationship. So we're going to see more of these types of parasocial relationships. I strongly predict that in 10 years we're certainly going to have more platforms, and there's going to be more of this sort of normalization of these types of celebrity worship relationships, where men are paying for, I guess, the opportunity to worship and to fantasize about a woman he can never really have. And that forms the basis of this strange new way of dating. And it is, I guess, a form of dating, not certainly miles removed from what we would consider traditional dating, but it is a new form of relationship that some men are going to be satisfied with. And this is going to actually create also an incentive for artificial intelligence to replace these OnlyFans models. And I'm going to talk about that in the next segment of this video, because at one point there's actually not going to be much difference between video chatting with someone and video chatting with someone who doesn't actually exist. The third sort of aspect of this commodification is the normalization essentially of compensated dating. Right, so what I'm talking about is like sugar daddy relationships or platforms like Seeking Arrangements, where the lady on the other side of the table will simply just be asking for an allowance, compensation for the actual date and for the intimacy that occurs thereafter. So I think we're going to see more of this type of normalization and maybe not social acceptance, but social prevalence, in part because of the economy, in part because it's harder, especially for younger people, Gen Z and younger people, to afford houses, to pay for their rent, to buy things. Inflation is an issue. So you're going to get the situation where some women, knowing that they are in a position of power, right, because they can attract a large number of men, especially women in their early 20s. Statistically, if you survey like all men, regardless of age, their ideal demographic is going to be women in their early 20s. And this is statistically proven, right? If you look at the research, the empirical research on what type of women men prefer, right, we have what I would call the Leonardo DiCaprio effect, right? You want women between the ages of 19 to 25, and that's statistically true among all men. Just give me 1 second. I'm just going to cross those roads without getting hit, and then I will continue the video. There we go. Okay, very good. So, these women, of course, they understand that they have this sort of decade of power, right, in their 20s, and then once they age, that power wanes with age. So these women understand that, at least some of them, they understand, well, hey, I have this power. I have this power of attraction. I am the most wanted type of female person for the wide demographic of men right now. Why don't I just charge them, right? Why don't I make profit and money? Because again, the economy is not doing that well. There are economic incentives for me to simply charge men. So you'll see that as sort of a direct form of commodification of dating through more social prevalence and social acceptance of traditionally these kind of sugar daddy type relationships. And I think more men are going to be willing to pay women for dates, right? Traditionally, men would pay for the date, but not pay the woman for her time. But I think you're going to see more women expect you to get them taxis to and from the date to compensate them for their time, right? Their time is now going to be commodified, right? It's like they're going to charge essentially an hourly rate just to show up. And you're starting to see this trend already, especially in North America. But I think this trend will deepen, where a woman is not, or a certain type of woman, not all women, of course, that's a generalization, but I'm saying a certain type of woman is going to expect for you to get the taxi, for you to get the bill at the restaurant, for you to pay her for her time, for the mere fact that she has graced you with her presence, right? So there's going to be a subset of women who are going to really capitalize on their value, and you're going to see this increased commodification in that way. So all of this is sort of negative news, right? We have platforms charging more money and charging money in more creative ways to force men to pay just to enter the market. You have these parasocial relationships developing where women are creating platforms by which they can attract a fan base and provide some level of service as a substitute for dating. And we have this direct trading of intimacy, we'll just call it intimacy for financial profit, right? So I strongly believe that this trend of commodification will continue for the next decade, well into 2034, as per my 10-year prediction. Okay, so the next topic, the next big prediction is what I call the Great Schism. So the schism is going to take place between native reality, which is this reality you see now. So I'm going to turn my camera around. I think this is native reality, right? This is what I'm seeing as native reality. The way that you experience this through the video is in effect virtual reality, right? You're not experiencing what I'm experiencing. The sights, the sounds, the smell, the tactile experience, the olfactory experience, dealing with the smell of whatever smell that I can smell at this point, is sensory. But when you experience this reality, it's going to be one step removed, and that's going to be virtual reality to an extent, and it's going to actually really the schism is going to be really large, because when you have functional artificial intelligence, near sentient or sentient artificial intelligence, one of the services they're going to provide, and that they're already providing, but it's going to be 10 times as deep and as prevalent, is AI sort of intimacy companionship, right? Artificial intelligence relationships. And I'm going to sort of piggyback on something I said earlier on in this video. Suppose you're a man who subscribes to a lady's OnlyFans, right? There's some level of texting, you're asking for videos, you're seeing her pictures. Is there really a difference between the images that you're getting, because what you're essentially getting are images, and some communication. Is there really a difference between that and communicating with an artificially intelligent being on the other end, where you still see the images, where she's still texting you back, and at maybe a quarter of the price, right, for this artificially intelligent subscription girlfriend? In a sense, there is obviously a difference in that at some point there is a real person behind all of the Photoshop filters, and maybe behind the DM team, because as I said, you're not actually texting her, you're texting someone she's hired in most of these cases. At some point there is a real person, but you're far removed. You're probably 3 or 4 steps removed from that person. So is there really a difference, right, if you're texting an artificially intelligent being for providing you with better service? So a lot of men especially a lot of men who are naturally not getting a lot of attention in the native world, or who are struggling with the dating apps for the reasons I described, and that sort of the bottom third of men don't get a lot of attention at all. There's going to be a very strong incentive for them to consider artificially intelligent beings or programs as a substitute for their dating. And that's going to create some really interesting implications, right? We're going to have perhaps long-lasting relationships between certain human beings, certain men, and again, this video is predominantly focused on men. As I said, this is sort of a male-focused perspective. I'll probably have, if we're exploring this topic in the future, I'll probably have a lady explain perhaps a female perspective. But this is again predominantly the male perspective. You're going to have men who are going to develop perhaps long-standing relationships with an AI being, right? We're talking about not just a superficial relationship, but a long-standing relationship in the same type of way that men develop long-standing relationships with their girlfriends or their wives, right? We're gonna see that. We're gonna see these types of relationships. I remember in the movie, this was a movie called Castaway, right? With Tom Hanks, right? He develops a relationship with Wilson, the beach volleyball, right? And in isolation, like humans have the ability. Of course, this is fictional, but it sort of speaks to a point that we are able to develop relationships with almost anything, right? We develop relationships with our cats, with our dogs, right? With animals. We know this for a fact that humans develop very strong bonds with dogs and cats, and pets and animals. We can develop relationships with certain plants. We obviously develop relationships with each other and with certain inanimate objects. Think of your favorite shirt, or your favorite toy, or your favorite bicycle or car, or your favorite musical instrument, whatever it is, or your favorite house. We certainly can develop relationships with almost anything, inanimate or inanimate. So it will come as no surprise to me that men in the future will develop these long-standing, deep relationships with artificially intelligent beings, and that could be partially visual in the sense that you're communicating with an app that's artificially intelligent, and the next step, of course, is to place the software into a humanoid being, like a doll or a robot, right? So that could also be an alternative where you have a face of a woman or a life-size doll, like a Stepford Wives. There's a movie about robot women, Stepford Wives. So it almost like that. And that's very likely that something like that will occur within the next 5 years, or 5 to 10 years, or at the very least, the technological software piece where men are having that relationship with the texting, with the videos. That's certainly going to be achieved a lot easier than the dolls, right? Because that requires some type of physical and software interface and connectivity, which is going to be a technological jump. But certainly the texting, the images, the videos, that can absolutely be achieved very easily. Right, even with the technology today, you just take a version of ChatGPT that responds to you in a romantic way. You create some artificially intelligent images of beautiful women, and there you go. You have already an AI companion. Right, that would satisfy at least 60% of your needs. So we see that. There's going to be ethics, right? The ethics of artificially intelligent beings and dating them. What does that mean in terms of how that plays in with real relationships? One question I keep asking is, was it cheating? Right? So if you're seeing a girl, and then you start a relationship with an artificially intelligent, sentient or semi-sentient being, is that cheating? Right? You ask some girls, and I think they will say it is, right? They'll say, well, as long as you're emotionally attached, you're emotionally cheating on me, so that's cheating. But what if there's nothing physical, right? What if the other person sentient being, non-sentient being, whatever it is, this artificial intelligent thing is not real. It's not a real person. Is that cheating? Right. So we're going to get some ethical questions as to what is appropriate in a relationship. What is not, right? So some women consider the use of pornography by a man to be cheating, right? It depends on the definition, depends on your relationship, and so that's going to be a really interesting dynamic, right? We're again looking at what does this mean for population, right? What does this mean if a large group of men are not out there meeting people in the native world? Again, this is sort of the baseline reality is the native world. If they're not going out to meet people in the real world because they're satisfied, they're emotionally satisfied, or they've given up, and they're satisfied with artificially intelligent female companions, then certainly that's going to influence birth rates, right? And we already see a decrease in birth rates in at least in certain parts of the developed world, and in certain parts of the developing world as well. We see that. So that's going to be a big implication as well as to reproduction, children, and can these people then have normal relationships again in the future, right? Once you experience the everything that artificially intelligent women can offer, and remember, suppose you overlay that with augmented reality, right? Suppose you put your virtual goggles on and you can have a full interactive experience with her, right? So the technology is going to be wild, right? Because there's going to be virtual reality on top of this. So you're going to have a speaking, semi-sentient or sentient woman who functions almost like a real woman in terms of what she's saying to you and how she's responding to you. You overlay that with virtual reality, goggles, where it's three-dimensional. Right, it's already very hard to distinguish between virtual reality and reality. I tried some virtual reality goggles a couple of days ago and played some computer games in this like 3D virtual reality world, and it's hard to get out of that world. Right, once you're in that world, you're really engrossed in that world. And those were adventure and violence action games. They were not intimate or romantic in nature. But I can imagine that it's very easy to convert the technology into one of romantic purpose. So you have men with at home with their virtual reality goggles communicating live, using speech to these virtual reality artificially intelligent women. So in that sense, you don't even need physical interface, right? You don't need a doll, or you don't need a talking head. Like you don't even need the physical piece of it. Perhaps that's an add-on that you can buy at a premium subscription, or it's a piece of equipment that you can buy. But fundamentally, the stimuli is going to be of the mind, right? The interaction is going to be up here. It's going to be one of a sensory interaction and one of communication and visuals, because men are very visual in terms of how we receive information. So it's going to be beautiful women that you get to design talking to you in a state of intimacy that you desire. At any point, you just put on your goggles. So it becomes almost like a video game at a certain point. So we're going to see sort of the gamification of dating in this virtual reality world, and I believe that a lot of men are going to be sucked into that world, for better or for worse, right? There's going to be absolutely mental health and addiction implications to this, because some men are not going to be able to get out of this world, and there's probably going to be different versions of artificially intelligent women. And who knows? It's going to be a wild world. Different versions, different services, different mechanisms, and different scope of service that they can offer you. Some probably more for companionship and conversation. Others for sexual intimacy, or a combination of both. And others maybe for more of a fantasy type of interaction. But in any event, it's going to create a situation where some men are going to be sucked into it, and they're going to be addicted, right? They're going to be addicted to the technology and to their virtual girlfriends and virtual intimacy companions, where they feel no emotional need to actually go out into the real world. So so again, the implications are astronomical, right? What do we do with a group of people who now refuse to go into the real world, who feel satisfied with virtual reality at home, right? We already replaced a lot of in-person shopping with Amazon. So we replaced going to restaurants with Uber Eats. All of this happened during the pandemic, right? We replaced virtual meetings with Zoom, right? We remember all of this technological shifts that took place during the pandemic, and along with these technological shifts came the behavioral shifts, right? Then it became normalized. So you're going to have groups of people who see this as actually the normal way of doing things. Now, some of them are going to get perhaps criticized by other segments of society, but once you have a critical mass of people who are using artificially intelligent, intimacy companions, and they now have their own voting block, they have their own market, they have they have their own market power, if you will, because they're spending money on certain things or certain types of products and services, and they may even have again, what I mean by voting block is they may even, as a democratic segment of the population, may even vote for additional policies by governments to give them greater access to these types of tools. I can imagine that some places in the world may ban this type of technology, or may attempt to curtail this type of technology. So they may become actually a group of people with some level of democratic power, or a lobby, if you will. Perhaps. We don't know, but certainly I believe that the mental health implications are going to be quite significant, right? Because we already see that with computer game addiction, there are mental health implications with respect to addiction, with respect to isolation. So it's going to be a very inwardly looking world for many men, where their satisfaction is going to come from these tools. But they're going to lack the incentive to go out into the real world to actually meet people. And for the majority of these individuals, that's going to be okay, right? I mean, one analogy I like to present is, for example, magic mushrooms, right? If you are on a trip, right, or it doesn't have to be magic mushrooms, but some type of hallucinogenic. If you're on a trip, you feel fine, right? The world is absolutely, well, it could be a bad trip, but assuming it's a good trip, the world is fine, right? Other people are looking at you and think that you're crazy, or they think that, like, what's going on? Like you're rolling around in bed in one place. But you feel fine, right? And that's the weird magic, I guess. To not, I don't want to butcher this word here, but that's, and I'm not here to promote drug use, but with certain hallucinogenics, it's that you have this entire reality to yourself, and it's inward looking, but you feel like you're connected to everything, right? So it's really just the feeling, and you don't really care about the world, and who cares what other people think. So it's a bit of a roundabout analogy to say that the future, these groups of men who are accessing the artificial intelligent intimacy companions are going to probably feel the same way, right? Like, they're not going to care what you think they should do or what they should do. They're satisfied with what they have at home, and it's going to be a very sort of inwardly experience. And the people on the outside, in native reality, they're going to accuse this group of people of being introverted and lonely, and they're going to pass judgment. But the people themselves, I don't think they're going to pass judgment on themselves in the same way. I think they're going to believe that this is the correct way of satisfying their needs, and to an extent they're going to be happy. And I don't think we can stop this technology as well. It's like Pandora's box. The box has been opened. I don't think you can take it back. I think once the technology becomes available, once certain people see the benefit to having these artificially intelligent companions, the extreme benefit, and at reduced cost, of course, relative to the human version, a lot of people are going to select this, and this is a tech that's not going to go away. If anything, it's going to be more enhanced, it's going to be more real, it's going to feel like the real thing more and more. And absolutely by 2034, I predict that this is going to be a very big element of dating. It is sort of this in a way, self-dating, but with artificial intelligence. In the same way that right now you can talk to ChatGPT and you can have a full conversation with ChatGPT. Are you talking to yourself or are you talking to ChatGPT? It's a philosophical question, right? Like, who are you actually talking to? In a way, you're having a conversation with yourself. You're getting external input, but you're chatting with yourself, but you're not. So it's interesting. Food for thought. Okay, so that's what's going to happen with artificial intelligence, intimacy companions. We're gonna so you envision this world where you have more commodification of dating. You have now this great schism that takes place, right? There's this huge schism between native reality and virtual reality, where you have these functional intimacy companions. And then what's the counter-revolution, right? With every revolution, there's a counter-revolution. When the French Revolution happened, there was a counter-revolution that happened that tried to restore the monarchy. When the Protestant Reformation occurred, there was a counter-revolution that tried to restore the power of the Catholic Church. Right? There's always going to be a counter-revolution. There's always going to be a reactionary group of people who don't like the revolution, and they're going to take steps to try to counteract the force. Right? As Newton said in his third law, with every action there's an equally powerful reaction in the other direction. So what does a counter-revolution look like? I'm going to start with something really radical, actually. I predict we are actually going to have state intervention. And I let me explain what I mean by state intervention. So with declining birth rates, right? So all of these issues that we talked about, the one thing that they're going to lead to is declining birth rates, right? We have these, parasocial relationships, dating apps that are quasi-successful, artificially intelligent, intimacy companions. What does that mean? Fewer people actually meeting, fewer people actually making babies. And for many countries, that's actually going to be an issue with declining population. So historically, the state has intervened by introducing financial incentives for having babies, right? Like if you have a baby, you get some type of financial benefit. We'll take care of the baby by giving you money. Some countries have gone even further by encouraging you to make the babies. Right, there was a campaign in Sweden called "Do It for Sweden," where they sent couples to these luxury hotels for a weekend, and then the Swedish government actually paid for the hotels, encouraging these Swedish couples to make babies. So it's called "Do It for Sweden." That was a campaign a couple of years ago by the Swedish government. But I predict governments, once they realize that these declining populations are actually going to be an economic, social, and political issue for their country, they're going to take it one step further. They're actually going to encourage, and in some places maybe even mandate, some level of dating. Right, so imagine if the government steps in, and I think this is actually going to happen. The government's going to step in, and they're going to say, you here are these opportunities locally for you to meet people in real life, in native reality. Right, so far the government hasn't done that. So far the government has said, or the state has said, how you meet people and where you meet people is your choice. We may throw you some money to make more babies. But I think that's about to change. I think in 10 years, one of the biggest changes is going to be state intervention where, and I imagine this happening in different ways, where the government could say, like, here are these mass dating events, right? If you're single, the local municipality may sponsor massive singles events for the population, and to get them out to actually meet each other, right, in real life, to get them out of their homes, right, away from virtual reality, or away from these parasocial relationships, to meet. And in some societies, this is actually much harder than others, right? If you look at certain societies like Mexico, Panama, certain parts of Spain, Italy, certain cultures, people go out dancing, right? I remember Cuba is like that. People go out dancing at, in the afternoon, evenings when it's summer. There's a lot more dancing, and so a lot of these Latin American countries and cultures where there's natural ways for people to just meet at the local place where you do your dancing, right? At the local, whatever it is, a street corner. It's just part of the overall culture that people go out more. You see more people on the street. You see more teens. You see more children, families, just the more people just on the street doing things, right? In North American culture, most people are just at home with their devices. But I've seen this personally in places like Cuba and Panama and Mexico, in Spain, and a lot of these Latin American countries and Spanish countries that encourage and culturally they're just set up in this way. They encourage the human interaction, right, through dancing, through music, through just meeting, and you see this vibrancy, and people are just naturally meeting each other, right? Men and women are just naturally through organic means. It's not forced. So I can predict that in certain Western governments and certain Western municipalities where we have declining birth rates, where dating has actually become a political issue, right? Where just men and women are just not meeting enough, right? This is going to be an issue, or it's already an issue in places like Japan, in South Korea, where we have declining birth rates, and men or women are just not interacting romantically enough in that way. Of course, that's not the only reason for declining birth rates, right? There's also the economic reasons, that it's more expensive to buy property. It's very expensive to raise children. Like I'm not blind to the economic reality of rearing children, but part of the problem, at least on the dating end, is that there just could be insufficient interaction between men and women in the physical world, in native reality. So again, I would predict that the state may have these massive singles events, right, or some other type of incentive, maybe some type of financial incentive to get men and women out into the real world. Maybe sponsoring certain events like speed dating or some equivalent of that. Different jurisdictions may get creative as to how they deal with this issue. But that's what I mean by state intervention, that the state will go from encouraging you to have children to encouraging you to actually meet in real life. And that's going to be, I think, one of the biggest counter-revolution points. And privately, we already see with some people in the Gen Z generation, they're already ditching their dating apps, right? They're saying that this is silly, right? We're not getting the matches. This is a weird way of dating. In fact, with dating apps, you have something called the paradox of choice, which is actually too much choice, and people are actually creating and forming fewer genuine connections because there's actually just too much choice. Is one of the phenomenon that's been discovered by sociologists over the course of studying dating apps, is that when you can date the next person where there's so much choice, it's there's less incentive to do so. It's very weird, this reverse human psychology, but that's what's happening. And there's a group of people in the younger generation where they're just ditching the apps altogether, and they're relying on more in-person ways of meeting people. There is I think a bar or some type of club somewhere in the Netherlands, and I'm in the Netherlands right now, that asks everyone just to ditch their phones, right? Like the moment you walk in, you must put your phone in the front. You cannot use your phone. You're forced to interact with people in native reality, right? So I think there's going to be, beyond state intervention, there's going to be, of course, a public and private backlash, right? So that certain individuals are going to want to find other individuals who don't believe that using technology as an intermediary is actually going to be the best way. There's going to be people who are going to be very against virtual reality and artificially intelligent intimacy companions. They're going to see this as the travesty that will destroy the world in a way. So you're going to have people who are going to be very against that. They're going to think of maybe new, or maybe not new, but maybe traditional ways of meeting again. And certain smaller enterprises are going to encourage that. Of course, your local bar, your local pub has always been the primary source of, meeting in real life. The big companies like Match Group, they're the ones that want you to meet online, right? They're the ones that want to take the club and turn it virtual, and that's how they make their profit. But I think we're going to see some pushback from mom and pop shops, from local businesses that are going to want to host more events to encourage real human interaction, and individuals will be taking those steps as well. those are my thoughts on the counter-revolution. Of course, if you have other thoughts as to what the counter-revolution may look like, as to how certain people are going to push back against technology, share with me your thoughts in the comments. I mentioned this briefly, but I think in certain jurisdictions, perhaps state intervention may look like may be a ban, right? State intervention may implement itself in the form of actually banning certain types of artificially intelligent technologies, especially when it comes to dating. It's very possible, but I find that's going to be very hard to enforce across the globe, because in other jurisdictions it's going to be allowed and encouraged. So even with local bans, I doubt it's going to be very effective. So the future of dating, 2034, 10 years from now, come and watch this video again, see if I'm right about these predictions. In the meantime, I hope that wherever you are in life, whether you're dating or not dating, or looking or not looking, I hope you manage to find something fulfilling for yourself, right? Whether that's through a partner or through yourself. Ultimately, you want to find a fulfilling relationship either with yourself or with someone else, right? Relationships are fundamentally important. I remember during the pandemic, I learned quite poignantly that human relationships are important. When you spend so much time in lockdown by yourself, having those human relationships are paramount. And we are ultimately social creatures, right? Humans are not meant to be lone wolves. We are social creatures meant to be with other humans. So wherever you are in life, I hope you manage to be happy with where you are, right? Whether you're by yourself right now and you don't want to be in a relationship, then I hope you be the best version of yourself as a single person. And if you're in a relationship, I hope that you take steps to be the best version of yourself in a relationship, or whatever that means for you. And if you're looking for a relationship, I wish you the best of luck in finding the ideal relationship for yourself, and I hope you go out and go get them, Tiger. And with that, I hope you've enjoyed my video. Again, this is Randy I, lawyer, world traveler, philosopher. I'm going to throw in philosopher in there because I feel very philosophical right now. And I hope to see all of you in the next video. Do not forget to like and subscribe. Randy I signing out from the beautiful city of Leiden in the Netherlands. Absolutely worth a visit if you ever get a chance to visit this small city. Very friendly and has great people and actually really wonderful food. Until next time, talk to you soon.